Hello and welcome. John Edgar Hoover was born on January the 1st, 1895 in Washington, D.C. He pursued law studies at George Washington University, earning a Bachelor of Laws in 1916 and a Master of Laws in 1917. Hoover's early career began at the Department of Justice in 1917, where he started as a file reviewer. His exceptional organisational skills quickly earned him a promotion to Special Assistant to Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer in 1919. In this role, Hoover oversaw the Palmer raids, which involved the mass roundups and deportations of suspected Bolsheviks and Communists after World War I. In May 1924, Hoover was appointed acting director to the Bureau of Investigation, the BOI, the precursor to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. He was confirmed as director later that year. Hoover inherited an organisation marred by scandals from the Harding administration and set about reforming it. He emphasised professional standards, merit-based, albeit overtly misogynistic, recruitment and rigorous training. Hoover established a fingerprint file which became the world's largest and a scientific crime detection laboratory. He also founded the FBI National Academy to train law enforcement officers nationwide. Hoover's tenure saw the FBI grow significantly in size and scope. During the 1930s, he capitalised on the public's fascination with gangsters by manipulating mainstream media to highlight and play up the FBI's successes in capturing notorious criminals. This period began the FBI's transformation into a premier crime-fighting agency, but with a deeply buried dark seed of evil at its very heart. Hoover introduced modern policing technologies, including centralised fingerprint files and forensic laboratories. In the late 1930s, President Franklin D. Roosevelt tasked Hoover with investigating foreign espionage and the activities of communists and fascists within the United States. This mandate expanded during the Cold War as the FBI conducted extensive surveillance of communists and other left-wing activists. Hoover's aggressive stance against radicals extended to investigating the Ku Klux Klan and civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. However, sexually explicit images obtained by Mailansky of his closeted homosexual activity blackmailed him into a hands-off attitude towards the mafia, allowing it to flourish and grow with zero FBI interference. The mob further cemented control by manipulating his addiction to horse racing via orchestrating the charade that he only bet minimal amounts while covertly gambling very substantial sums via mafia cutouts. Significant controversies marked Hoover's leadership. He used the FBI's extensive surveillance capacity to gather damaging information on politicians and other public figures, which he kept under his personal control and used with devastating effect. This invariably compromising information enabled him to maintain his position as FBI director by intimidating even sitting presidents. Hoover's authoritarian administration and his persecution of those he deemed subversive drew public criticism, particularly in the early 1970s. One of the most infamous examples of Hoover's abuses of power was the FBI's extensive surveillance on Martin Luther King Jr., which included attempts to discredit him and disrupt the civil rights movement. Hoover's actions were often driven by his conservative worldview and an obsession to suppress political dissent. J. Edgar Hoover's legacy is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, he transformed the FBI into a highly effective and professional law enforcement agency, introducing numerous innovations in crime detection and investigation. His efforts to build the FBI's public image were largely successful, and he was regarded as a national hero for much of his life. On the other hand, Hoover's secretive, illegal activities have cast a long shadow over his legacy. His use of the FBI for political purposes, his violations of civil liberties, and his accumulation of personal power eventually led to widespread condemnation. Although his disastrously compromised homosexuality officially remained a carefully protected secret for decades. In the years following his death, long overdue reforms were implemented to prevent any reoccurrence of the unprecedented concentration of power that Hoover had so ruthlessly amassed and aggressively wielded. Today, FBI directors are limited to a single 10-year term, a measure designed to ensure greater accountability and prevent abuses of power. J. Edgar Hoover's nearly 5-decade tenure as director of the FBI left an indelible mark on American law enforcement. His contributions to the modernization and professionalization of the FBI were significant, but his legacy is egregiously marred by his authoritarian tactics and gross abuses of power. Hoover's life and career are a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority in a democratic society. His complex and multifaceted legacy, which includes both significant achievements and widespread condemnation, is a testament to the enduring impact of his leadership. Hoover developed an authoritative leadership style early on, expecting staff to follow orders without question. This stemmed from his experiences as a young leader in the Department of Justice, where he oversaw the Palmer raids at just 24 years old. When appointed acting director of the FBI at age 27, Hoover focused on professionalizing the agency. He established strict rules, merit-based recruitment, and rigorous training standards. Hoover's exceptional organizational abilities demonstrated in his early career led him to implement systems like centralized fingerprint files and forensic laboratories at the FBI. His involvement in the Palmer raids reinforced Hoover's lifelong focus on combating perceived domestic radicals and subversives. This heavily propagandized public profile enabled unchecked and excessively invasive surveillance of whoever he targeted. It effectively placed him above the law he hypocritically professed to protect, defend, and faithfully uphold. Hoover quickly learned how to cultivate and control relationships with powerful figures while incrementally accumulating and solidifying public support. His natural talent for authoritarian manipulation helped him entrench his position as FBI director for nearly 5 decades, despite being unconditionally compromised by the mafia for the larger part of that tenure. In his initial years as director, Hoover worked to establish himself as a restrained technocrat who could be trusted, improving agent quality and building the Bureau's technical expertise. Encouraged by President Roosevelt to build public support, Hoover became remarkably adept at exaggerating and glamorizing the FBI successes through controlled media productions and cultivated PR culture memes. These early experiences and lessons shaped Hoover's leadership style, combining authoritarianism, professionalism, and political acumen, significantly enhanced by an intense focus and control of his public image. This holistic approach enabled building an unprecedentedly powerful law enforcement agency while simultaneously securing his inviolate position at its helm for an extraordinarily long duration. The official record of his life and times at the FBI is an egregious falsity, since all celebrated enhancements to the agency came at the horrendous cost of having a criminally compromised homosexual gambling addict as the predatory socio-psychopath at the heart of its massive and all-encompassing web. The FBI's glitzily manicured public profile conceals a sordidly criminal history of state-sponsored terrorism, rampant blackmail, black ops and assassinations, all mostly unknown to the public. The planning and subsequent obfuscation of the Oklahoma City bombing atrocity exceeded its gratuitous mass murder of innocents at Waco. Typically, these monstrous crimes were never investigated despite overwhelming proof of guilt. The FBI abuses of power continue via the excessive political persecution of Donald Trump and its certain involvement in his narrowly failed assassination attempt. One day, the FBI's litany of serious crime will become known, and hopefully its central HQ, the J. Edgar Hoover Building, will be renamed with the statue of this hypocritically mythologized criminal appropriately relocated to a seamy backstreet gay bar. Thank you for watching.